instead of nose wheels. What you can't see from out there, and it's totally irrelevant to anything. You know how when you've got a street light out in front of your house, it's always got a pile of, you know what, from a pigeon sitting on top of it. That was right back here. Are they trying to tell me something? You're right, that is a flight path, isn't it? See it going right across there. I've never noticed that. Anyway, what we're here for is to learn why everybody should fly nothing but nose-wheel airplanes, correct? Okay, how many here are very comfortable tailwheel pilots? Good, keep your hands in the air. Okay, these are all the liars in the bunch. Now, how many here do not fly tailwheel airplanes at all? Okay, keep your hands up. How many of you who don't fly tailwheel airplanes don't fly them because you think the minute you untie it, it's going to ground you? Right there, okay. What is the correct name for a tailwheel landing gear? What does that make tricycle gear? There you go. Aren't we glad we didn't know that back during World War II and before? All right. There's a lot of people that, for whatever reason, I have no idea how this happened, but somehow or other have bred a level of mystique into tailwheels and made them sound like something, you know, mere mortals can't fly. Well, they're right. Those of us who fly them are not mere mortals. We all know that. But there are some real good reasons to want to. Well, I tell you what, we're going to have a little test here. I want you to name 5 civilian airplanes with a nose wheel that are really truly interesting. Now, start thinking about it. Try it. Try to come up with 5. Wait a minute, he brought up a point I want to get into. He said NERV with a nose wheel. How many RV pilots are there in here? Probably half of you or something. How many of you have A models? How many are flying tail wheels? A model. Okay. Guys with the tail wheels. I can't think of a better designed, easier flying tailwheel airplane in existence. Possible exception, and you're not going to believe what I'm about to say. It's a possible exception of Bearcat. FAW Bearcat. Super easy. So I don't understand why you want to carry around all that drag, that extra weight, when it's only going to take you 5 or 6 hours of dual time not to have it. I know it's a comfort zone for people to do it, but you have no idea how much they're giving up in terms of speed and everything else. All right, now, here are some reasons why you should learn to fly a tailwheel. Because there are certain things that are never going to wind up in your logbook. You'll never see this in your logbook. Now, if you can live through your life not having at least one of them in your logbook, then it's not sad, is it? Fortunately, I'm lucky enough to put all of those in my logbook. Are there any of my students in the room? Okay, here's one. Okay, another one? Okay, these are, has the nerve damage healed? I spend good portion of my time checking out tailwheel pilots. If I have a normal year this year, I'll hit 7,000 hours in type to specials. Almost all of it checking out tailwheel pilots. Now, there's another number. You know what that number represents? The number of amputees I checked out. With amputees, with one leg. One of them above the knee by 5 inches. And when you're amputated above the knee, you can't push with that leg. You have to push your hip. Kind of knocks the crap out of the mystique of a fit special, doesn't it? And that particular guy is competing in an S1S in intermediate competition. So much for tailwheels being hard to fly, right? All right. Let's talk about why tailwheels have got the reputation and how do you avoid anything having to do with that. And by the way, anytime we're talking about anything here right now, I want you to put your hand in the air if you've got a question. Stop me dead. Don't let me continue on. And by the way, that thought pattern comes, how many here are engineers? How many of you took your calculus out of a big thick book by Thomas? Remember the book? There's something on? Okay. Almost all of us, right? The reason I'm saying I want to hear questions when you hear them. I took calculus 101, 102, and 103. 101, look, 101 and 102 at the same time. I blew 101 again. So I was taking 101 and 103 because I didn't ask the right questions at the beginning and carried all those mistakes forward. And by the way, turn it up louder. Stand by. You do realize that you're sitting in the cheap seats over there, right? Okay, is this better in the back? Can you hear better? Okay, good. Good. Now, philosophically, and by the way, see how many people are here? That really means something. It means something to me personally, but more important than that, I've been giving this forum for easily 25 years. And up until about 8 or 9 years ago, we'd have about half as many people. So now we're seeing more interest in tailwheel airplanes of all possible types, which also means the intelligence level of everybody who's coming in here is higher. Okay? Your common sense isn't real good, but your intelligence is good. All right, let's get right to the real bottom basics of the tailwheel airplane. There's our main gear. Our center of gravity is going to be in a different place depending on what we're talking about. If you know the airplane, our center of gravity is up here, isn't it? Let's say we land crooked. What happens? Self-correcting? Absolutely, but why? Remember Isaac Newton? Things in motion tend to stay in motion. Center of gravity is going to want to go this way, and where's the nose wheel going to go? Back over here in line. Now, I'm going to use an eraser because yesterday after one of my forums, a lady walked up to me and said, you know you've got blue chalk all over your nose. All right, now let's put our tailwheel on. Now where's our center of gravity? Behind it. Unless, of course, your landing didn't work out real well. Okay, you land crooked. What's the center of gravity going to try and do? Going to try to go straight, isn't it? What's the tailwheel going to do? Going to try to follow the center of gravity. So, the goal here is don't land crooked. Okay, what else do you want to talk about besides tailwheel? It quite literally is that simple. I have yet to land a tailwheel airplane, and I've flown little ones to big ones, ultralights to Bearcats and Mustangs. I've never flown a tailwheel airplane that has the geometry of the gear is right, it's not twisted or anything. That if you put the center of gravity on a line of travel with no drift, it will more or less roll straight, even if it's special. Some of my students here, do you remember me landing and airplanes roll? Little tiny stretches here and there, correct? Do you remember what happens when you don't land straight? I do have a product in my hangar that comes along with what we're talking about here. It looks like rolls of toilet paper, but it's actually rolls of underwear for my students. But all you got to do is land straight, no drift. Now, every tailwheel airplane has a V. And if you keep the tailwheel in that V, you generally don't really have to move the rudders at all to correct it. You will move a little bit, there'll be a pressure. There won't be, dancing on it. And the slower the airplane, the wider that V gets. The faster the airplane, I've got a guy that's trying to get a hold of me all day. Now something like a pit special, everybody says, oh man, and this is the extreme of the reputation, by the way. It's so hard to land because it's so short and so narrow. How many have heard that? Come on, get your hands in the air if you've heard it. Everybody's heard it. That's what the airplane's reputation is. It's not true. A pit special, where do you put the hinge line on a horizontal tail is generally, the rule of thumb is 3 to 3.5 times the median aerodynamic chord. A pit special's tail is a 3. So it's probably where it ought to be. Let me turn this off. So the tail is about where it should be. So aerodynamically it's not short. The gear's about the right width, 17 to 20%. And just put it on a V. The difference is that the pitch lands much faster. A cub, not a cub, I'll say a cub. A cub lands about 35. The Tailwheel about 45. Fits about 68 to 70. What do we know about that relationship? It's not linear. It's exponential. Everything we do on the ground in any kind of an airplane, especially a tailwheel airplane, you're working with kinetic energy. What's the equation for kinetic energy? Think back to high school physics. 1/2 mv squared. Centrifugal force, same thing. So every mile an hour you are faster than you need to be to touch down is an exponential function, the effect it has. And that's why landing tailwheel airplanes fast is not a good idea. We'll get into wheel landing. By the way, I want to write a note to myself. All right. Does anybody have any questions on this part of it? All right. When you walk out of here, everybody's going to have to sign a pledge that you're going to land straight with no drift. All right. Now, Scott, Kevin, whoever else, what's the most common phrase that you hear from people in the cockpit? How did you know that? What is it? Feel your butt. Constantly, feel your butt. Feel your butt. Because landing straight, landing in a drift is a function of having flown a good approach, and a good approach is a ball-centered approach. I spend easily 30 to 40% of my time in an airplane instructing, trying to get people to fly like they did when they were 10-hour students. When you're a 10-hour student getting ready to solo, you know nothing about an airplane but how to fly it. Your instructor has really worked on that. As soon as that, allergies, my allergies are driving me nuts. It's driving me nuts here. The need to keep the ball in the center, everybody knows that. Anybody here doesn't try to keep the ball in the center? You lying bastards. You always think, well, as a matter of fact, I had a conversation with one of my students, and I was talking about the necessity of keeping straight and how, like on takeoff, you've always got P factor, and you learn to fly in a Rockwell 112, because you don't see too many of them. I said, you're telling me, and he said, no, you don't have to. You don't have to. Mine airplane doesn't do that. The ball doesn't go out center and you take your feet off the rudder. And I said, you're telling me the ball's right in the center and you take your feet off the rudder and climb out. And he says, well, it's not exactly on the center. It's off the center. That's my point. It's off. There's no such thing as close enough when it comes to yaw, especially when you're landing. Now we're going to get into a lot of aspects on that here in just a little bit. There's two of the birds just left. Anybody get hit? Now, everybody assumes the problem with the tailwheel airplane is the ground handling. That's what everybody thinks about the pitch special. They get to, oh, it's such a squirrely airplane, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. On that note, to quote Curtis Pitts in one of our forums one day, a student asked him, why are pitch specials so squirrely? And how many here have heard Curtis talk? He's from South Georgia, rural Georgia, real thick Georgia accent. And he said, son, there ain't no such thing as a squirrely airplane. There's a lot of squirrely pilots. And that's the truth. And by the way, a lot of what you're hearing here, who's going to stay for the pitch forum after this? Some of you, you're going to hear a lot of this again. Because it all applies. The tailwheel to the tailwheel. The physics apply no matter what you're flying. So, flying the approach is critical that you fly it correctly. That you have the ball centered. I spend so much time working on that. Because if you can get a square landing, your rollout becomes a piece of cake. I mean, literally, a piece of cake. Let's see what people are flying in here right now. The guys that are flying tailwheel. What do you guys fly? Mustang 2. RV7.
180 and PA-12.
180 and a what?
PA-12.
PA-12, good airplanes.
PA-20.
PA-20. Is it an actual 20 or a converted 22?
Actual 20.
An actual 20? Wow. Don't see those that often. The back.
Carbon Cub.
Carbon Cub.
RV8.
Rocket Chief.
Rocket Chief. Okay, let's take the Rocket Chief as an example. I'm not picking on you. I'm not picking on well, maybe I am picking on you. Just kind of put up with it, okay? The reason I picked the Rocket Chief is because of all the airplanes that were mentioned here. The Rocket Chief is the king of adverse yaw. It is the king of adverse yaw. I have no idea why it's so much different than a Champ, because it's got Champ wing panels. It's just they're spaced out, you know, for the side by side. And if you don't coordinate it, you get down low, as you well know, correct me if I'm wrong, you put a little bit of air on in. Nose is going, it's just amazing, especially when it gets slow. And there's something that we're going to get into here that has nothing to do with tailwheels. It has to do with basic flying, but then it bleeds into tailwheels. Yes, sir?
How do you ball center on a crosswind landing?
On a what?
On a crosswind approach.
On a crosswind approach, you do. On a crosswind landing, you don't. Okay? We'll get into that. We'll get into crosswinds. We invented, you know, first of all, and this shows you how far back it goes. I got my commercial ticket at Champ. So that tells you how long ago that was. I mean, for real. And this is in Oklahoma. So there's a word that you just kind of ignore when you learn to fly and you start in Oklahoma. We don't worry about wind. However, in Arizona, it's a totally different ballgame. I've never flown in wind like this. They don't have because in Oklahoma, you know, we'd use a loft chain for windsock. But it's because of the strength of the wind, not the character of the wind. And this is something that people don't understand. They look at a windsock and say, well, it's blowing from over here. But there's a lot of characteristics in that wind being translated to you in that windsock. For instance, it may be more or less straight down the runway, but then it'll snap the direction with a gust. And wind is zero in boundary layer, correct? When you get right down to the asphalt, it's zero. Then it builds up in a gradient. And the lower you get, the less wind you're going to have because you're down in a gradient. But if you got a snapping crosswind, you get all these little gusts beating you up. And in Arizona, for whatever reason, maybe it's the heat, I don't know what it is. I've been down there now for 26 years. You get within 5 or 8 feet of the ground, and all hell breaks loose, right? You just have no idea what you're dealing with till you get down there. It's kicking you around. So you got to stay right on top of it to keep it straight. So there's wind and then there's wind. I could stand here and give an entire forum just on figuring out what winds are and which winds to stay away from. And on a tailwheel airplane, there's 2 winds you stay, or one type of wind you just flat stay away from. Go in a tight airplane, don't go flying. It has nothing to do with speed. If it's a quartering tailwind, I don't care how small it is. It can be a 5-knot tailwind, quartering tailwind, don't fly. It very much screws up what you are seeing, what you are feeling, and what you are seeing. And the worst crosswind in the pits, and which has scared me so many times, is 90-degree crosswind. Wouldn't that be a big one? 10, 15, something like that, 90 degrees. But the gust characteristic is one of those sharp ones, and when it's a sharp one, it comes around behind the wing, and what you get is a shear. And in the pits, because it's so heavily loaded, it just pays off. Wham! Falls out of the air. So when you see a sock doing that, if it's going behind the wing, don't fly. It'll really like to fly. Now, any questions on this, because we're going to get into the logistics here now. Yes, sir. Your what? Well, he said, what do you do if you're in the air? You come down. That's always the problem. Go cross country or whatever. You're coming into the wind. Do your best to use the other runway. Come the other way so the gusts are coming ahead of the wing instead of behind the wing. Years ago, not that many years ago, I wrote an article called Experience is a Great Thing If You Listen to It. And that came out of me not paying attention to what I just said. We had a pretty hard quartering tailwind. I landed, good touchdown, straight. But the wind caught me just as I started to touch and loaded the outside wheel, then the inside wheel, so I started to curl hop, which it'll do once in a while. And generally it'll get about 2 oscillations, maybe 3, and then it die out. This was not giving up. I had enough time to say to the student, is this damn thing ever going to stop doing that? And the big, high, vicious. And I knew it was a quartering tailwind. I went ahead and landed it. And I put on a hell of a show for the tower. The tower just loved it. But the thing that never occurred to me was as I was taxiing in the next airplane, which was a jet, asked for the other runway. It never crossed my mind. I'm a pitch pilot, I can handle this. Yeah, right. At least one sheet off that roll. So you avoid those kind of winds. Now let's talk about actual technique. Well, first of all, how many people in here, or how many tailwheel instructors you got in right now? Wow. You guys come in as kids, or pick on me, or you're just looking for a place to sit down? Looking for a place to sit down, correct? Okay, right. How many of you teach the happy feet concept? Working the rudders. Okay, here's one. You're your instructor? Okay, you're not going to have a conversation right now. Why do you do that? But they're constantly moving their feet. He says doesn't want them to hold. He says he wants them to just go in and out constantly. Well, the happy feet thing is constantly. Your feet are constantly moving. Okay, because what you're doing there is correct, and we're going to talk about that. According to my students, which I see about 1 out of 10 of them, were taught the happy feet thing, which is really a dumb idea. Because if you're doing that, and generally I'll have somebody who's doing that, and they will try to say, well, I do it because I want the student ready to take care of something in case it happens. I want them to be loose and ready to move. Well, that's fine, but then I ask them, why do you move any control in the first place? To make the airplane do something. So if you're doing this, your airplane is going to do something. And if it's crosswind, one foot's going in the direction of the wind. So I'm dead set against the happy feet thing. So if you're not going to be dancing on the rudder, how do you use it? All right. And this is more applicable to the pitch than it is to other airplanes. And the reason that the people get away with the happy feet thing, and why this is less critical in Cub or Champ or something like that, is because they're slow and they've always got a big dead spot in the rudder beds. If you can move the rudders, nothing really happens. Who's flying the RVs? If you put your foot down, what happens? Airplane turns, right? Most home builds, most faster tailwheel airplanes don't have a dead spot in the rudder. So here's how you handle it. And I'm going to first illustrate the mistakes. The rudder comes in, got a little bit of dwell while it has effect, and then you get off it, like so. All right? Now, then, what we're going to argue here is the necessity of getting off the rudder quickly. Because if picture your foot putting the rudder down and coming up on the rudder. Your brain says, okay, I'm off the rudder. The airplane says, no, you're not. You're still got rudder in it as you're coming up. Mathematically, you put half that amount of deflection in for the period of time it takes you to come up. And in a fast airplane, like a Pitts or an RV or whatever, if you're slow bringing it up, you're adding a lot of rudder in. And that forces the airplane to follow your foot and go through your Centerline. Now, what the average person will do is say, oop, they're going to do it. He will put replicate this movement on this side. You wind up walking down the runway. Anybody here not done that? You're afraid I'm going to call you another lion SOB, right? We've all done that one time or another. But ideally, what we do is when we get up here and we come off the rudder, we want to come off as fast as we can. You want to It's like you're pouring sand in you're going to hear this again in the Pitts thing. It's like you're pouring sand in a cup. It's on a digital scale. As a matter of fact, it's probably the Dillon electronic scale that's sitting on your reloading bench, where you reload ammo. How many reload ammo here, by the way? By the numbers, so you know what I'm talking about. So you got a nice accurate scale. You're pouring your sand in. You say, okay, I want 3 pounds. Okay, here comes 3 pounds, and now I stop pouring my sand. You wind up with 4 pounds of sand. When you see you've got what you want in the rudder, get off of it. One of the Pitts is fairly quick in that area, partially because of the speed and because it's got a real tight rudder. But faster the airplane, the tighter it controls, the more likely it's going to mimic you. So if you're having a bad day, guess what? Your airplane's going to have a bad day. There are some airplanes you just flat don't fly if you're distracted. I can think of over 5 times when 4 of those times I actually had a student in the airplane, the engine running, and my brain was just not in it. So I pulled the plug and quit. Because when you're flying airplanes like that, they're 110% airplanes. You know, people say, well, I'm flying because it relaxes me. It makes me forget the distractions of the day. And a Cub or a Champ or even a Survivor, you can carry your distractions into the cockpit. You get into faster airplanes, RVs, whatever, you don't carry those distractions into the cockpit. You know, go kick your dog or your kid around the house or something. Keep the frustrations out some other way. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What's your favorite airplane to instruct in?
My favorite airplane to instruct in? Oh, geez, I got 7,000 hours in pitch. You think it might be that one?
Not you, for the student.
What do you think is a better airplane to teach people in? You're not going to believe this. One of the reasons why I teach them in pitch, especially S2As, the first series, is the aerodynamics are not compromised in any possible way. Nothing is offset, nothing is twisted. The aerodynamics, there's no differential. So the ball stays in the center and the airplane goes where it wants to go because you got to figure out how to fly. There's nothing, engineers haven't engineered all that stuff out. Every single thing that you see in into the envelope airplane, like a Pitts, a lot of other airplanes, I can fly Pitts. Those same physics, those same things happen to every airplane. No different between a Pitts and a Piper Cub, except for not only the Piper Cub, that is straight, or any other airplane, 152. Because modern designers, after about 1950, 55, it was mandatory by management that they have a picture over their design station that is a little old lady from Keokuk, Iowa in wrinkled socks. And that's who you're designing the airplane to be flown by. You're trying to eliminate the need for skill. And so I like the A models because everything about them is just perfectly straight. So whatever you do, the airplane does, and everything you do that's wrong, it does it wrong. When you do it right, it does it right. It's like a mirror held up in front of you, and it shows you your weak spots, and it shows you when you fix them. I want to move around up here. Poop alert. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
This would be primarily for wheel landing.
Oh, magic word, wheel landings. Why do we do wheel landings in a tailwheel airplane? Anybody? What is the purpose of a wheel landing?
Get more airflow over the tail.
Get more airflow over the tail. Next. Control. Next.
Saves wear and tear on the tail. Saves wear and tear on the tail wheel.
Saves wear and tear on the tail wheel. That's a new one. Nobody's ever told me that one. Visibility. One of the t-shirts that my wife and I have thought about making up, the first one will be Pitts pilots are their own worst enemies. The other one is, we don't need no stinky visibility. By the way, show me, like that tail wheel thing I think, or the nose wheel thing I did earlier. Think how many come up with really, truly interesting, challenging airplanes that you can see with the nose. Very few. Yes, sir. Because of crosswinds. All right. No. The reason that you do a wheel landing, because they look cool. Well, here's something. During World War II, there was only one small unit in the 8th Air Force that wheel landed Mustangs. And most of the rest of the unit you couldn't hack if you wheel landed the Mustang. Most of the people. The reason for a wheel landing is to take care of gust spread. If you've got a pretty good gust spread, and you go to 3-point in an airplane, let's say you've got 25% of the landing speed and the gust spread, and you get a healthy gust as you're flaring, it'll pick you up, and then it'll drop you out of it because you're right at a vulnerable speed. Plus, it's got a pretty good gust spread. If you're down at your maximum angle getting ready to land, most gusts when they hit the runway aerodynamically increase the angle of attack on the wing so it unload like that. So that's why you use a wheel landing. A lot of people use it because it's a crutch, because they can see better, or they think they can see better. But you're carrying extra speed with you. And there are downsides to wheel landings. First of all, you're faster. You should be carrying at least half the gust spread. So if it's a 10 knot gust spread, you're carrying an extra 5 knots. And when you land, even if you make a really good one, you've got that vulnerable period where your tail is off the ground. Now, when does the tail come down on a wheel landing? When it runs out of air, right? So that means while it's transitioning down, your rudder control is real soft. You almost don't have any. On some airplanes, you don't. So you're using brakes to take care of it. And that's just not a good situation. You can, if there's no gust spread, you can wheel land or a 3-point, even something like a cup, in much more crosswind than you think you can. You'll be up on the upwind wheel, tail will be on the ground, you'll be leaning into it, and you can much higher winds than you think you can. Okay, I'm waiting to have an argument with somebody about here. No, yes, sir.
Higher than the POH says,
Higher than the POH says for what?
for crossing landings, 3-point.
When you're landing 3-point, you're always going to be at stall speed. You know, you may be approaching faster, but there's no reason. Speed is not your friend on vinyl.
Crossing from about 90 degrees, POH says on 18, and they just
Stay with 18. Whatever the POH says, they have tested it. Now, I have seen examples in POHs, and the Pitts POH is a good case of it, where I'm absolutely positive that the lawyers got into it. Because the first line, you got the chart, and the first line, the lights come across like this with different speeds on them. The first one is 30 degrees, that's 60 miles an hour. 60 miles an hour crosswind, or wind. You know, and then when it gets around here to 90 degrees, it's only 20. So I think a lawyer looked at what they actually tested out here, which is probably in the neighborhood of 35 or 40, and said, no, we can't tell people that. You can't put that down on paper. You know, some idiot's going to do it. Well, we do it all the time. My record in the pits is 38 gusting to 50, snapping between 60 and 90 degrees to the runway on a front edge of a level 500 port. And when I turned final, the tower called, says, "You're on your own, Papa Bravo. We can't see you." Because now we've got crushed rock between the runway and the taxiway. We had sand in those days. And there's just a layer of sand going across. And as I came around and started to line up, I realized I couldn't see the runway either. I could make out the white lines. So I just picked a white line and used it in my 3-point. Now, if you're in an airplane like a Pitts or a lesser so an RV, you're sitting on the ground at a lower angle than most airplanes are. Cub is the last airplane I know of that was designed to have its deck angle to be that close to its critical angle of attack. That's why on a Cub, if you're working in a gust spread, it'll unload, drop you a couple of feet because you're so close to the angle. Most airplanes are 2 or 3 or 4 degrees shorter. These 2-hole Pitts is 10 degrees and stalls at about 14 or 15. So when you put it down, it's still got some air, some flying speed in it. In our case, you can't get it on the ground much slower, about 68, and it stalls at 60. So gusts will pick you up. Now, if you're in a crosswind and you get a gust or anything, if you bounce the airplane or you do anything that causes the airplane to leave the ground after pushing down, you cannot let it drift. If it starts drifting sideways, the inertia that the airplane has, just because it's moving sideways, will take more bank angle than it does for the crosswind. So let's say you're using 3 or 4 degrees for the crosswind. You're going to need another 4 or 5 degrees for the inertia. And then if the gust quits, what happens? You come down. No, first of all, let's say the wind's from this direction, and so it's trying to weather vane the airplane to begin with. And you're high and you drop it, so it catches the wingtip. Second, to make the airplane go this way. You're moving sideways, so the inertia can make it go that way. guess which direction the airplane's gonna go? You're gonna go that way. I had a guy come in with an S2B once, had speed tape on both wingtips, where he got both wingtips in one landing. Bam, 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 bam. How he didn't lose the airplane, I don't know. But if you've got if you bounce it, or you skip it, or it picks you up, on that one I just mentioned, pick me up 3 times, up there. Hello, there we go. That picked me up 3 times in the landing. This thing got a narrow cone, looks like. Picked me up 3 times in the landing. Just when it picks you up, you can unload it the gear, so you just roll it as you come up. Let me see if we got a connection that's loose.
He's pretty old school.
Well, we'll do this if we can.
Coming in on kind of you want to use the water to slow you down. I don't think
If you bounce it and it starts to move, don't try to save it. Don't ever be in a situation in flare where you say, I'll fix it on the ground. Don't ever do that. Power up and go around. Come back around and add 5 minutes to your logbook. Otherwise, you're going to be in a real compromised position when you touch the ground. Is this all making sense to people? Because this is a critical point. Because it's going to happen to every single person who ever flies an airplane. You're going to bounce or it's going to gust and pick you up or whatever. Just drop the hammer and go around. Don't try to save it. If you touch down in that situation, it's really going to be a ride from that point on. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Can you go back to the diagram for 1 minute? Let's say your diagram there, I got one rudder in, and I want to get it out, so I'm talking about the bottom just through there. That's my left foot. Almost an inch. When you're done with that maneuver, am I now stable directionally along that runway? You see what I'm saying?
Okay, his question is, when we do this, basically what you're asking is there only going to be one of those? Or is there going to be a number of them? And sometimes, depending on the airplane, this is not going to happen unless it's out here or something like that. It really has to be an airplane. Sometimes you'll have this, then you have a little stab because it came across Centerline. And if this is right, that's going to be it. That'll be the end of it. Chances are pretty good it's not going to be right. It's going to be too much or not enough. So you might have another one, a little short one, couple will move back and forth, but you're not doing it all the time. It'll damp out after a number of oscillations. There is a thing that, y'all know what a PIO is, right? Pilot-induced oscillation. You generally get it in pitch, but you get the same thing on the runway. As plain as can be. And once you start moving back and forth like that, it's really hard to stop yourself. Very hard. Did I see a hand back there? Yes, not. Yes, sir.
So, with a directional tailwheel, that's going to add a little bit of an additional factor to this depending on if
Say that again.
with a steerable tailwheel, the chains are loose or the chains are tight. That's going to add a little bit of additional factor.
Okay, you brought up something that's real important there. His question was if you're doing this with the tailwheel, and then he said the magic words again, just like saying wheel landing, kicks off another subject. If the chains are loose and the chains are tight. If you want to get into a real controversy, and it's going to be a blonde versus redhead versus brunette type of thing, about how do you set up a tailwheel, the springs. Everybody has their own way of doing things. And I wear out, I buy. Matter of fact, I just took about a year and a half's worth of, delivered about a year and a half's worth of tail wheels. Because I go through a tail wheel about every 8 hours. And just to tire the wheel itself, I'm using balls. Hello, I've used almost every tail wheel made to mankind. It's legal on the airplane. Scott's, aviation products, et cetera, and I've settled on them all. Their quality control really sucks, so you gotta make sure it's done right.
Take that pin out of your hand.
if you, I came up with the right combination of spring tension that I like, that works with it, so it turns out to be exactly precisely what it says in the instructions that come in the tailwheel. I just never read them, which is you want to have just enough tension, about 1 chain length of tension on the springs. You don't want them slack, because then that builds in a delay between you getting a response. And you don't want them too tight, because it makes it too quick. So 1 length of chain for them all seems to work. Now the RV guys, you guys are direct drive on your tailwheel, aren't you? You have chains? Okay. Yeah, because when it's direct drive, it's quicker. This thing is still coming and going. Unless you got more questions on the basic tip of line, let's talk about some particular, and see what you got.
What's your technique on approach on a crosswind?
What's my technique on a crosswind landing? I'll just trap a little bit up down final, and then when I get ready to flare, just roll the wing down into it, hold the nose straight, make my correction, and I'm down low. In some airplanes, one of the reasons the pitch is so good in the crosswind is because we are so low to the ground that we're well down in the gradient. So the wind is getting less and less and less and less as you go down. So depending on the airplane you may not benefit from the wind as you get closer. In RVs, and my airplane like mine, where we're so close to the ground, 10 feet you're going to be fighting one wind, but 2 feet, 3 feet you're going to be working with a much different wind. And in a pitch, it's very seldom that you actually land with the tail wheel and one wheel on the ground, because by that time you're jumping out of the wind. But regardless, let's talk about crosswinds. Let's talk about landings in general. By the way, do me a favor, whoever's going to watch, I'm certain at least one of you does, tell me when I'm running out of time.
It's 10:50.
Okay, so I'm done at 11, is that correct?
11:15.
Huh?
11:15 according to.
11:15, thank you, because the next guy that's coming in for the next briefing, I mean, he's really a jerk. He'll get angry if we hang over. All right, there are 3 things when you're in flare that you want to do. Number 1, hold your touchdown attitude. In this case, 3-point. Hold your 3-point position, and that means as the airplane settles and slows down. In some airplanes, like a Cub or a Champ or whatever, you're going to be increasing the deck angle all the time that you're coming down there. And the perfect landing is when the stick hits the stop and all 3 gears hit the ground at the same time. That's the perfect landing. We can't do that in airplanes like Pitts and other airplanes are too flat. Okay, so that's rule number 1. Rule number 2. And by the way, what I'm doing here is I'm setting up an argument for doing crosswind landings differently psychologically than you've been doing that. Keep the nose straight. Rule number 3, I'm going to kill the drift. As we're flaring, we're going to look at both sides of the nose. That's another thing that will leave this building. As we're flaring, and we are trying to set it up, keep that nose straight. The last couple of feet, use whatever you have to make sure you're parallel to the center line. Rule number 3, use whatever aileron it takes. Don't automatically think cross control. Don't automatically say to yourself, it's going to be right aileron and left rudder. I'm going to explain this right now. It's tight. It's just coming and going. Yeah. Because when you put the wing down, depending on the airplane, hello, on the wind, it may or may not, the amount of wing it takes to stop it from drifting, may or may not cause the nose to move before you touch down. If you automatically cross control, regardless of the situation, you stand a good chance of having the nose being pulled out of the wind. So now you're a little bit crooked when you touch down. So just very mechanical, just look over the nose, look around the nose, keep it straight. And if the amount of aileron that you put in is enough to cause the nose to move, there's rule number 2, keep the nose straight, and you'll wind up cross control. So sometimes you'll be cross controlled, sometimes you won't. And this varies a lot from airplane to airplane, because if you use those 2 rules, sometimes you'll be cross controlled, sometimes you won't. Yes, sir.
All right, so my question is, my tendency is to pay the drift and then make sure the nose is straight. Should I use it? Does that change things? Or should I go back to change my order and do nose straight?
His question is, should I be doing this or this first? You should be doing this and this at the same time. As you're pulling your nose straight, a little rudder or later on. All right, yes, sir. Okay, his point is, and which stands right, by the way, yes. When we're touching down, you'll be on the upwind wheel, and the tail wheel will be on the ground. There's a normal rule, unless if it's a real hard wind, and you're in a light airplane, I'm in a light airplane, you may roll a ways in that position, wing down on the wheel. In something like the heavier, like the fifth is lower, it'll generally go plump, plump. If you're out on the upwind wheel, the other one will come down almost the instant you touch. Well, it says, when I try that, I'm veering one direction or the other. What's happening promptly? Drifting. Well, he says when he gets the wheels down, you continue to drift. The drift should not be there when you touch down. And there should be nothing causing the airplane to move. It means that you're not getting the airplane zeroed out in sideways motion. Or it's not straight. Because see, if you're not straight, the center of gravity is going to cause the airplane to try to turn. And also remember, if you got a crosswind, enough crosswind to actually be using some control into it, especially if it's cross control. It's not consistent. It'll be strong up here and weaker down here. But as soon as you touch the ground and the wheels are trying to move forward, it's going to try to weather vane you. And some airplanes weather vane more than others, and that means you're going to have to put rudder, to keep it straight. No, it's weather vane because your center of gravity is behind the main and you got a big tail. So it's trying to push the tail sideways. And then the center of gravity will take over and try to do something with it. That makes sense? So just make sure you got no motion at all and be prepared for it to try to weather vane into the wind. We'll always do that. Okay, that's the point I was trying to make and apparently didn't make. Wheel landing, he's saying he feels vulnerable when he touches down on a full stall, on a wheel landing. No, it should come right down in contact instantly, but it will also instantly try to weather vane if you got any kind of wind at all. Just get that stick back, get the tail down, and make sure, and that's another point. In some airplanes, such as this and RVs and a few others, you're not actually making a true full stall landing. So you touch down, the stick is only partway forward, partway back. It's not all the way back. And the tendency is when you're flying a regular airplane, the stick's not back, get it back. Nail it back right then. But if you're in an airplane that's still got a lot of speed in it, now you pick it off the ground. this all making sense to people? You got any questions on that? Okay, he says the reason he likes the wheel lines is you can roll it up on the mains, but you're talking about being vulnerable. You're really vulnerable while the tail's in the process of coming down. If you got a crosswind and it's got a gust brake, because it's going to try to turn you, and now mostly brakes are what's going to keep it straight. The rudder's may not be enough. All right, so 3-point when you can, and if you're close to the fuel weight limit, go. Oh, they're talking about 25% of the airplane's landing speed, which means in something like cover or champ, you're talking about 8 or 9 miles an hour. Not much at all. And if it touches down 70, you just ignore it. I virtually never will land a fix because you never have the occasion to need it. Yes, sir.
But a lot of the places I land, you don't have a runway out in the bush, things like that. And something I think you haven't really hit on is you keep saying straight down the runway. Well, I don't have a runway a lot of the time. What I'm after is a straight track for the airplane, regardless of whether I'm landing on a runway, a taxiway, a ramp, a sandbar, whatever. I don't think you stress the need for the track being straight versus the straight down the runway.
In my mind, when I was saying straight down the runway, that's what I'm saying. A straight track. You don't want to move in either direction. It's a track. And then also, if you screw up and you're going diagonally across the runway, and sometimes you will be going diagonally across the runway because the wind is so high, it's still got to be straight going across the runway. The track has got to be straight, so that's a good point. I'll revise the work that way. Yes, sir.
Partial flap versus full flap, I realize.
You. His question is, with the tail in the air and you've got some rudder in it, when the tail comes down, isn't that going to make the airplane jump because the tail wheel lined up? Is that what you're saying? Okay, almost never. And then if it does, it's just a quick thing like that because the tail wheel kicks into it instantaneously, almost regardless of the tail wheel. Yes, sir.
Teaching wheel landing, power off, a little bit of power on.
No, you got a little power on. You always got to have some hang time. So you're carrying a little bit of power when you get it down in the flare, feel for the landing. And one way to prevent bounces, which spring gear, like a Centerline loves to do, it just loves to bounce. Just because you know about when you're going to touch down, you know when you're within a few inches, and you're waiting for it, you're trying to put it on the back half of the wheel. Drop one wing very slightly, so you pick up one wheel first, and that cuts the rebound in half. So it goes clunk, clunk, real quickly. All right, yes, sir.
What's the distance between the main wheel and the tail wheel?
The question was, what is the distance between the main wheels? What you're talking about is the moment arm, between that and the tail. Well, it has a lot to do with it, but it also is taken into account by the designer. And the shorter the arm, the bigger tail surfaces are going to be. You have a certain amount of force that you're going to want to have on an airplane to be able to just fly in general. And you can either do it with a real long small tail or a shorter real big tail. And if you're on the ground and it's trying to weather vane, the longer tail gives you more control, but it also allows the wind to work on it harder. Most airplanes fall into the same kind of a category in terms of that particular dimension. Does that answer that?
What X and a champ?
A what?
What X
Okay.
and a champ? And the champ is much easier to control.
He says the champ is much easier to control than a 1X, but they're not touching down at the same speed. Plus, the tail wheel on the 1X is more direct control. So every time you move your feet, it's real easy to over control because of that. Correct? Okay. All right. Next. On that one. Let's go. Yes, sir. Well, the more crosswind you got, the less flap you're going to want because the less side area you got. So if it's a real hard gusty crosswind, landing with full flaps means you're going to have to really work it. Depending on the airplane, bear in mind, full flaps on a Cessna 120 or 140 or 140 You know, you almost can't tell they're down. You get to try to fall they're down on a super cub or something that's got a little bit more flaps or a bear hog. You know, where you got barn doors and flaps. And you can tell when they're down. So if there's very much crosswind, you're not going to very, very much flat. How am I doing on time, somebody? 5 minutes, thank you. Say again? Size always matters. Yes, it does, but not necessarily in the handling. All things being equal, the bigger the tailwheel, the flatter the deck angle, the faster you're going to land. So there's a trade-off there. It depends so much on the airplane. Factory pips came out originally with 4-inch tail rather than the 6-inch. Took 2 degrees out of the angle. So they land a little bit faster, but the tailwheel lasts long for most people. So, but if you're working in the bush, or if you're working on a really bad runway, you want as much tailwheel as you can get, so it doesn't get beat up. And also the question is, do you have a pneumatic tailwheel or do you have a hard rubber tailwheel? It depends on what you're landing on. Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. You have my condolences. I'm not hearing you. You have to talk louder.
I just bought an Oster Mark 5.
An Oster?
Oster.
You're obviously from out of the country. You're not from Texas, I can tell you that. So, yeah.
Mark 5 Oster. Do you have any
Well, when you get into what amounts to antique airplanes, you will get into it. What year was yours built?
44.
44. And you will find a big variation between the way that they handle on the ground and whether or not they've been given enough aerodynamic force to be able to control arc crosswind. A lot of those airplanes, I can't tell you about the Oster because I've only flown one. I don't remember what mark it was. But somebody said tailcraft, and that kind of what falls into the tailcraft. So it loves to fly, doesn't like to stop flying. Yes, sir. Okay, taxiing in high wind conditions. We have proven any number of times there are some winds you can land in, you can't taxi in, depending on the airplane. But the thing about carrying the stick out of the wind, on a lot of airplanes, that's BS. If you want to know where to put the stick, put your hand out the window. You've got to have enough wind on the back of your hand to overcome the prop blast. The prop blast on almost every airplane, except for a Cub or a Champ or something, using a rubber band for power. It just hasn't got enough wind. So, use your common sense. But there will be times, and we have seen it with Dave taxiing into the Bear Hawk. Pensacola. They had to get a fuel truck out there to block the wind so he could come in because he was going to race. Keep the plane straight. There goes again. Last one. I gotta go to the next one. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, can you hear me? Ground looping? What's that? A ground loop is not something an airplane is set up to normally do. It's something that a pilot doesn't do a lot of things we're talking about here unless it developed. Everybody assumes that a pit special is a ground looping terrible airplane. In my whole life I've been involved. I've been instructing in the pits for 47 years. I know of one ground loop. Now I know there's lots of them I don't know about, but I have seen lots of them that went screaming off the runway, 30 degrees to the runway, because they weren't maintaining directional control. So a ground loop is a possibility in every tailwheel airplane, but if you do all of these things that we just said here, it's just not. I don't ever remember in the roughly 45,000 landings I've made in a very high-speed airplane that has a real bad reputation. I don't ever remember being close to a ground loop. All right? Yes, sir. No, not you. You're nodding like you were agreeing. Okay, cool. Somebody agrees.
Real quick.
That's what the last guy said.
Quartering tailwind, stick forward or stick back?
Quartering tailwind, If it's enough wind that you have to move the stick, you shouldn't be flying it. You know, think about it. You know, if you're landing in it, you're just gonna have to do what you have to control the airplane. That doesn't change. What does change on a quartering tailwind, especially if it's got any velocity at all, and you'll see it more on takeoff than you will on landing. Everything about the airplane feels wrong. Your butt doesn't feel right, the controls don't feel right. The only sense that you've got that is correct to give you good information is your vision. So at that point in time, you just focus on what you want it to do what you have to make it do it. All right? Okay, we got, you guys are like, you know, the next guy is going to be so PO'd.
Any specific.
Good, thank you very much. Huh?
Tailcraft, any specific price?
Well, I'll say this about tailcraft. One of the comparisons I like to use is when you taxi up to a gas pump in a Mustang, everybody comes out. And in one way or another, they kind of let the pilot know, wow, you must really be a good pilot to fly something like that. While that conversation is going on, a guy 3 points a tailcraft out on the runway in a 12 to 15 knot gusting crosswind, 3 points it, and nobody pays any attention to him. That's the pilot. To show you how much of a pilot that took to fly Mustangs during World War II, one of my really good friends was Bruce Carr. Bruce Carr was a Triple A's, actually 14 kills, so it was triple. He's known for getting shot down behind German lines and coming back on that duty one night. I had his log for quite a while, and on his first mission, in either the 354 Fighter Group, which was the first group to take Mustangs into combat, at that point in time, none of those guys had ever been in a Mustang. None of them. Most of them had never seen one. They had 10 hours of P40 time, put them in a Mustang, did 4 flights, and then they went on missions. And he went on the first mission, he had 154 hours total time. The Mustang that you see with the big black and white checkers that says Big Beautiful Doll, you see that sometimes? That's the paint job for Colonel John D. Landers. And they like that because that's the paint job because he was an ace in the Pacific and he was an ace in the ETO. And when he got his first zero flying a P-40 over beginning, he had 204 hours total time. So it's all about the training. All right, thank you all very much.